Namaskar, live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India NewsHour, India's voice to the world. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh, coming up in the next hour. EU leaders, along with Ukraine President, hold emergency summit in Brussels. Germany says Europe should not give up on US support. Sergei Lavrov says French President's nuclear rhetoric is a threat to Russia. Asserts European peacekeepers in Ukraine will be seen as NATO against Russia. Hamas defies Trump's ultimatum, says the US threats encourage Israel to evade ceasefire terms. This is India's century, says Prime Minister Narendra Modi at Republic Summit in New Delhi. Reiterates resolve to induct 1 lakh youth into mainstream politics. Prime Minister Modi awarded Honorary Order of Freedom of Barbados, honour in recognition of PM Modi's leadership and support during COVID pandemic. India's External Affairs Minister Jaishankar slams Pakistan with stolen part of Kashmir jibe over POK, says issue will be resolved once Pakistan's illegal occupation ends. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky met European Union leaders on Thursday as they discussed aid to Ukraine and European defence at an extraordinary summit in Brussels. The meeting takes place against a backdrop of dramatic defence policy decisions driven by fears that Russia, emboldened by its war in Ukraine, may attack an EU country next, and that Europe cannot rely on United States to come to its aid. DD India's Dheeraj Das gets us more.
Heads of the 27 European Union nations and Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky met Thursday for a special summit in Brussels, where they discussed further support to Ukraine and the Commission's plan to rearm the continent. The extraordinary summit, convened in response to the US-Russia talks, seeks to show that the bloc is now ready to step up its efforts to support Ukraine in the short term and ensure its strategic autonomy to defend itself in the long term.
This is a watershed moment for Europe. And Ukraine, as part of our European family, it's also a watershed moment for Ukraine. Europe faces a clear and present danger. And therefore Europe has to be able to protect itself, to defend itself, as we have to put Ukraine in a position to protect itself and to push for a lasting and just peace.
Ahead of the summit, leaders said that they would stand by Ukraine and spend more on defense in a world upended by Donald Trump's reversal of US policies.
We want a peace through strength. And this is the reason why I present today to the leaders the Rearm Europe plan. The Rearm Europe plan provides up to 800 billion euros for defense investment. It gives the member states fiscal space to invest in defense. It gives the member states possibility to invest in the Ukrainian defense industry.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky expressed gratitude for Europe's strong support to Ukraine.
You made a strong signal to Ukrainian people, to Ukrainian warriors, to civilians, to all our families. And it's great that we are not alone. We feel it and we know it. Thank you so much for everything.
Donald Trump's return to the White House has left European leaders getting into a hurdle to rethink their security policy as fears grow that the US could scale down its military presence in Europe. As concerns rise over Trump's cordial approach to Moscow and the threat of pulling thousands of US troops out of the continent, leaders throughout Europe are bracing for a new geopolitical reality that could require them to be more self-sufficient. Despite the push for a unified approach, divisions within the European Union continue to present challenges. Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orbán has opposed the bloc's current strategy, advocating for direct peace talks with Russia. Chancellor Olaf Scholz expressed his support for continued US involvement in European nuclear deterrence.
We must ensure, with a cool and intelligent head, that the support of the United States is also maintained in the coming months and years, because Ukraine is also dependent on their support for its defense. This must also be the most important task in the coming days in order to guarantee the conditions for a just and fair peace.
The Rearm Europe plan, introduced by European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, seeks to mobilize 800 billion euros for defense over 4 years. The five-point plan seeks to provide financial and structural support for European defense efforts. Rearm means more fiscal space for national public funding for defense through the escape clause, a new instrument for loans to EU countries for defense capabilities most needed, more flexible use of EU funding towards defense investment, more private capital mobilized via the Savings and Investment Union and the European Investment Bank. With uncertainty hanging over them, European leaders are gearing up for a world where they might have to assume a larger burden of their own defense with an increasingly uncertain US administration. Dheeraj Das's report for DD India.
Meanwhile, the Kremlin condemned what it called a highly confrontational speech by French President Emmanuel Macron, in which he called Russia a threat to Europe and said that Paris would consider putting other countries under its nuclear protection. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said French leaders' comments were an indication that Paris was looking to prolong the conflict in Ukraine. Meanwhile, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said French president's nuclear rhetoric posed a threat to Russia.
Of course, this is a threat to Russia. If they consider us a threat, if they call a meeting of the chiefs of general staff of European countries and Britain, if they say that it is necessary to use nuclear weapons, to prepare to use nuclear weapons against Russia, this is of course a threat.
In other stories, US President Donald Trump has issued stern threat to Hamas with severe consequences if hostages are not freed. In response, Hamas accused Washington of using repeated threats against Palestinians to support Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu to disregard the fragile ceasefire.
US President Donald Trump delivered a stern ultimatum to Hamas, demanding release of all remaining hostages in Gaza or face destruction. In a forceful statement, Trump wrote, and I quote, "Salom Hamas means hello and goodbye, you can choose. Release all of the hostages now, not later, and immediately return all of the dead bodies of the people you have murdered, or it's over for you. Only sick and twisted people keep bodies, and you are sick and twisted. I'm sending Israel everything it needs to finish the job. Not a single Hamas member will be safe if you don't do as I say. I have just met with your former hostages whose lives you have destroyed. This is your last warning. For the leadership, now is the time to leave Gaza while you still have a chance. Also to the people of Gaza, a beautiful future awaits, but not if you hold hostages. If you do, you are dead. Make a smart decision. Release the hostages now, or there will be hell to pay later." In another development in a significant break from the decades-old policy, the US President Donald Trump administration has been conducting secret talks with Hamas to negotiate the possible release of American hostages. Talking to Hamas breaks a long-standing taboo against negotiating with groups the US sees as terrorist organizations. White House said US Hostage Affairs envoy Adam Boehler has the authority to talk directly with Hamas.
Well, when it comes to the negotiations that you're referring to, first of all, the special envoy who's engaged in those negotiations does have the authority to talk to anyone. Israel was consulted on this matter. And look, dialogue and talking to people around the world to do what's in the best interest of the American people is something that the president has proven is what he believes is good faith effort to do what's right for the American people.
Besides this, European nations unequivocally stated that Hamas must be stripped of its governing role in the Gaza Strip. On Tuesday, Egypt presented Gaza reconstruction in the Arab League summit in Cairo, which was outrightly rejected by Israel. However, Hamas has welcomed the Arab proposal to rebuild the Gaza Strip under a future Palestinian Authority administration. The plan is also seen as a counter to President Trump's proposal for US control and resettlement of Gaza's residents. Earlier in February, President Trump posted a AI-generated video promoting the transformation of Gaza into a Gulf state-like resort. Under the redevelopment plan for Gaza, he wants to clean out the population of about 2 million people to create the Riviera of the Middle East. Aman Kumar Himanshu's report for DD India.
Meanwhile, France has welcomed the Arab plan to rebuild Gaza under Palestinian Authority leadership, but insists that Hamas should not govern. French Foreign Ministry spokesperson Christophe Lemoyne said the proposal constitutes a serious and credible basis to respond to reconstruction, governance and security needs. However, he added that Hamas must be entirely excluded from power, disarmed, and that Israel should receive security guarantees. On Tuesday, Arab leaders approved a plan to finance Gaza's reconstruction through a trust fund, bring back the Palestinian Authority, which ruled Gaza before Hamas took control in 2007. Israel's government initiated proceedings to dismiss Attorney General Gali Barev-Miera, who was the vocal critic of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. On Wednesday, Israeli Justice Minister said the move was over inappropriate conduct and prolonged disagreements between the government and the Attorney General. Barev-Miera, a fierce defendant of the judiciary's independence, has often taken positions that clashed with Prime Minister Netanyahu's government. US President Donald Trump announced a month-long exemption to automakers operating out of Canada and Mexico from the 25% tariffs imposed on those countries, provided they comply with the existing free trade rules. The development sparked a rebound in auto stocks, but trade tensions still remain a concern between the three trading partners. Here's more.
US President Donald Trump has agreed to delay tariffs for a month on some vehicles being manufactured in Canada and Mexico, providing temporary relief to the automakers. The decision came after Trump spoke with the chief executive officers of Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis. The automakers urged him to waive the 25% tariff for vehicles being manufactured in these countries in compliance with the 2020 US-Mexico-Canada Agreement's rules of origin. The White House has also indicated openness to hear representations about other products that should be exempted from tariffs.
We spoke with the big three auto dealers. We are going to give a 1-month exemption on any autos coming through USMCA. Reciprocal tariffs will still go into effect on April 2nd, but at the request of the companies associated with USMCA, the president is giving them an exemption for 1 month so they are not at an economic disadvantage.
The 1-month reprieve triggered a rebound in auto stocks, but trade tensions remain a concern affecting US corporations and consumer confidence.
El principal exportador de
43% of what the United States buys is Mexican and 10% is Canadian. 74% of what Mexico buys for a car sold in the United States, 72% comes from the US. We are deeply interconnected.
que podemos vender.
For Americans, if everything were to pass with full tariffs, 25% plus, it would lead to a significant price increase in the US.
Further, the prospects for wider relief were dampened after Trump's call with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, as the US leader expressed concerns that Ottawa had not done enough to address the fentanyl smuggling.
For the last 4 years, unfortunately, our neighbors to the north and the south, Canada and Mexico respectively, have allowed America to be a dumping ground, not just for illegal aliens, but for illegal, poisonous, deadly fentanyl, which is now the #1 killer of young people in this country aged 18 to 34.
The tariff impact extends beyond the American borders, affecting global trade dynamics. Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba expressed concerns that the high tariffs imposed by the Trump administration will make investments in the United States challenging. To address these concerns, Ishiba plans to send Japan's Industry Minister Yoshimoto to the US for talks with the Trump administration. Meanwhile, Japan and Britain are preparing to hold high-level economic security talks on Friday, in which US tariffs will be on top of the agenda. This will be the first time that both US allies will hold 2+2 meetings focused on economic matters amidst trade concerns. Trump's tariffs have already strained relations between the US, Canada, and Mexico, with the countries vying to retaliate with appropriate countermeasures. The trade tension is also showing signs of hurting the American economy. Recent data revealed slowing payroll growth and lower wage growth for workers switching jobs. With Amrita, Amit Mukherjee for DD India.
And still to come on DD India NewsHour. India's External Affairs Minister Jaishankar says Indo-US trade issues to be resolved through dialogue. India AI mission gains momentum.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
You're watching DD India NewsHour. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. Prime Minister Narendra Modi chaired a high-level meeting on Thursday to review the progress of India's cooperative sector. Discussions focused on promoting Sahkar Se Samruddhi through technological advancement, increasing youth and women participation, and initiatives by the Ministry of Cooperation. PM emphasized the need for partnerships with global cooperatives, promoting organic products, ensuring transparency through asset documentation. He also proposed promoting cooperative farming and using digital infrastructure like AgriStack to enhance agricultural activities. He also suggested introducing cooperative courses in educational institutions to inspire future generations. Prime Minister was briefed on the national cooperation policy and the ministry's achievements. And Prime Minister Modi addressed the Republic Plenary Summit 2025. At the summit, he proudly stated that today India thinks big, sets ambitious targets and delivers remarkable results. Prime Minister stressed that now the world says that this is India's century and India's achievements and successes have sparked a new hope across the globe.
भारत की उपलब्धियों ने, भारत की सफलताओं ने पूरे विश्व में एक नई उम्मीद जगाई है। जिस भारत के बारे में कहा जाता था ये खुद भी डूबेगा और हमें भी ले डूबेगा, वो भारत आज दुनिया की ग्रोथ को ड्राइव कर रहा है।
In addressing this summit, Prime Minister Modi said youth is the X factor of today's India, where X stands for experimentation, excellence, expansion. He also stressed on bringing 1 lakh young people into politics with the aim of making them more aware about several scenarios in the nation before voting in 2029 general elections.
मैं पिछले दिनों से लगा हूं कि मुझे 1 लाख नौजवानों को राजनीति में लाना है और वो 1 लाख ऐसे जो उनकी फैमिली में फर्स्ट टाइमर हो।
India's Prime Minister visited the North Indian state of Uttarakhand today as part of the state's winter tourism program. Prime Minister Modi performed puja at the winter seat of Ganga River in Mukhwa village in the state. The puja ceremony of the river Ganga took place ahead of a public function in Harshil. The winter tourism program, initiated by Uttarakhand government, seeks to boost local economy by promoting religious tourism. With Prime Minister's visit, the state hopes to further showcase its tourism potential and attract more visitors to the region. And amidst applause and chants, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi was felicitated as he arrived on stage in Harshil. Various dignitaries of Government of India were present on the stage, along with Uttarakhand Chief Minister Pushkar Singh Dhami. Addressing the rally in Harshil, Prime Minister emphasized making Uttarakhand a year-round tourism destination.
सर्दियों में देश के बड़े हिस्से में जब कोहरा होता है, सूर्य देव के दर्शन नहीं होते, तब पहाड़ों पर धूप का आनंद मिल रहा होता है। ये एक स्पेशल इवेंट बन सकता है। और गढ़वाली में से क्या कहेंगे? घाम तापो पर्यटन। खासकर हमारे कॉरपोरेट वर्ल्ड के साथी वे विंटर टूरिज्म का हिस्सा बने। मीटिंग्स करनी हो, कॉन्फ्रेंसेस करनी हो, एग्जीबिशंस करने हो, तो विंटर का समय और देवभूमि इससे होनहार कोई जगह नहीं हो सकती है। मैं चाहूंगा कि सर्दियों में डेस्टिनेशन वेडिंग के लिए भी उत्तराखंड को देशवासी प्राथमिकता दें।
India's Prime Minister has been honoured with the Honorary Order of Freedom of Barbados for his strategic leadership and support during the COVID pandemic. Barbados honoured Prime Minister Modi. The Minister of State for External Affairs, Pavitra Margareta, received the award on his behalf at a ceremony in Bridgetown. Barbados Prime Minister Mia Amor Notley had announced the honour during her meeting with Prime Minister Modi on November 20th last year at the India CARICOM Leaders Summit in Guyana. India and Barbados have shared diplomatic ties since 1966, and this award highlights their strong partnership. Moving on, India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar on Wednesday spoke about steps taken by government for development in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. Responding to a question from a member of the audience at the Chatham House in London, S. Jaishankar said India is waiting for the return of what he called the stolen part of Kashmir, which is under illegal Pakistani occupation.
Look, on Kashmir, actually we have done, I think, a good job solving most of it. I think removing Article 370 was step number one. Then restoring growth and economic activity and social justice in Kashmir was step number two. Holding elections, which were done with a very high turnout, was step number three. I think the part we are waiting for is the return of the stolen part of Kashmir, which is on the under illegal Pakistani occupation. When that's done, I assure you, Kashmir solved.
And Dr. S. Jaishankar has said that trade-related issues with the United States will be resolved through dialogue and mutual agreement. He said the issue was also discussed with US President Donald Trump during Prime Minister Modi's recent visit to the US. India's Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal is currently in the US for further discussions on the matter. S. Jaishankar made these remarks on Wednesday night during a conversation at Chatham House in London. While discussing India-US relations in detail, he mentioned that several priorities of the American President Donald Trump are beneficial for India.
If I were to look at some of the big priorities of this president, many of them actually work for us. He seems to be, for example, committed to keeping energy prices reasonably affordable and stable. We welcome that. He is putting a lot of emphasis on tech. I think that offers a lot of possibilities, for us. He has a certain view of trade. We had a very open conversation about it. And the result of that conversation was that we agreed on the need for a bilateral trade agreement. And our trade minister, in fact, is there in Washington doing exactly that right now.
India's Minister for Electronics and Information Technology, Ashwini Vaishnav, launched the AI Kosha and AI Computer Portal in New Delhi on Thursday. India AI mission will cover about 40% of computing costs for eligible users. This mission will also provide shared computer resources through 14,000 graphic processing units or GPUs. Addressing the event, Minister Vaishnav said, in the next 3 to 4 years, India will have their own GPUs that will compete with the world.
I also want to share with you that now we have formalized the work for taking that very big leap in having our own chipsets. This is something which will change the course of our country, and as we finalize the entire program, as we are right now in very extensive consultations with the experts, once we do that, then in the coming 3 to 4 years, we should have our own GPUs competing with the world and really take that seat among the top 5 technology nations of the world.
From creating models in different languages to setting up data labs and building applications across sectors, India AI mission is picking up speed and momentum. India is creating an inclusive and innovation-driven ecosystem with major emphasis on open data and affordable access.
India is at the forefront of an artificial intelligence revolution, shaping its future with innovation, accessibility and self-reliance. Under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, AI is no longer confined to big tech companies. It is now empowering students, startups and innovators across the country.
India's massive and diverse data set is driving groundbreaking technical advancements in AI, not just in India but globally.
AI infrastructure. With the Indian AI mission, the government has allocated 10,300 crore to build one of the world's most advanced AI compute infrastructures. A high-end common computing facility equipped with nearly 19,000 GPUs is making AI research more affordable and accessible. India is also developing its own GPUs, reducing dependence on imports and fostering homegrown innovation. Open data and AI excellence. Data is the foundation of AI, and India is ensuring access through the India AI Dataset platform. This initiative provides high-quality, anonymized data sets, fueling AI solutions in agriculture, healthcare, and governance. Additionally, AI centers of excellence in key sectors are driving research and application development. AI for India's languages. India is developing its own AI models, including large language models tailored for Indian languages. Digital India Bhashini is breaking language barriers, while Bharat Gen and Sarvam 1 are revolutionizing public services, content creation, and multilingual AI applications. AI-powered public services. AI is seamlessly integrating with digital public infrastructure, from managing crowds at Mahakumbh 2025 to streamlining financial services. India's AI-driven solutions are setting global benchmarks for efficiency and accessibility. Pragmatic AI regulation approach. India is investing in AI-driven safeguards, funding top universities and IITs to develop solutions for deepfakes, privacy risk, and cybersecurity threat. The future of AI in India. With a strong talent pipeline, robust AI investments, and a pragmatic regulatory approach, India is on track to becoming a global AI powerhouse. The future is digital, and India is leading the way. With input from Tapush Bhattacharya, Tripti Party Support, TT India.
And still to come on TT India NewsHour. We talk about the implications of EU emergency summit amid tussle with the US.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. when supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India NewsHour. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. Our top stories. EU leaders, along with Ukraine, hold emergency summit in Brussels. Germany says Europe should not give up on US support. Sergei Lavrov says French president's nuclear rhetoric is a threat to Russia, asserts European peacekeepers in Ukraine will be seen as NATO against Russia. Hamas defies Trump's ultimatum, says US threats encourage Israel to evade ceasefire terms. This is India's century, says Prime Minister Narendra Modi at Republic Summit in New Delhi, reiterates resolve to induct 1 lakh youth into mainstream politics. Prime Minister Modi awarded Honorary Order of Freedom of Barbados honour in recognition of Prime Minister's leadership and support during COVID pandemic. We now return to our top story on EU-Ukraine Emergency Summit. Joining me is Ambassador Ashok Sajjanhar, former senior diplomat. Good evening and welcome, sir. The European theatre appears in a sort of hyperactive mode as we speak, a flux of agendas, concerns regarding EU, Ukraine, US and NATO. Is it possible to gauge the direction in which it is headed?
Thank you very much, Shubhendu, for having me on this show. Yes, I think the EU countries are very, very confused. And, you know, they are trying to see if there are even any straws that they can sort of, hang on to. And this is what they are looking at. The two of the leaders have gone and they have met the US leadership, whether it was President Macron to begin with, and after that, Keir Starmer. And they have had, some discussions, but the manner in which on the 28th of February there was a meeting between Zelensky and Trump, that did not go around well at all. And so the Sunday meet in London, that was basically how to deal with the change situation, because I think when the Sunday meeting was organized, was initially planned by the UK Prime Minister, they must have thought that the mineral deal would have been signed and there would have been at least some indication of the security guarantees that President Zelensky was asking for from the United States. But that unfortunately did not happen, and so Europe has come up with a peace plan of its own. But they are very certain, and I think one aspect, Shubhendu, that they seem to be absolutely certain about is that they cannot let go of the United States at this moment. So I think that is where the issue stands, and now there have been talks between Mike Waltz and the National Security Advisor of Ukraine. They say the meeting will take place between Russia, Ukraine and the United States. Not very clear whether Europe is going to be included in that. What are the terms? What is the commitment that Mr. Trump might have given to Mr. Putin in his conversation? That is not known. So that introduces a huge amount of uncertainty in the situation as it stands now.
Right. So how do you read the rather contradictory statements also coming out of EU leadership? President Macron of France talking about extending French nuclear deterrence to the other European countries and saying, and I quote, that Washington or Moscow cannot determine the destiny of Europe.
No, absolutely. I think he's very right, because, before this, there was the nuclear umbrella from the United States on all the other countries. So whether it is France or it is the United Kingdom, which is the other nuclear power in Europe, so they were not really required to take any stand on that particular score. But now that the involvement and the association of the United States has come under a huge question mark, So France has thought it necessary to declare that, to say that in so many words. And I think this is because if the uncertainty is there even over the nuclear umbrella from the United States, then what is the message that it sends to Russia? And that could be very, very disturbing for all the European countries, EU plus those who are not in the European Union. And that is why I think to give greater confidence to the other countries in Europe, France has come out with this declaration. And I think it will be a source of some solace and comfort and confidence to the other countries in Europe.
And so, staying with that idea of contradictions within the European Union, the German leader, Chancellor Scholz, today speaks about not giving up on US nuclear support. So, are there these challenges within the European Union, challenges of unity, challenges of speaking in a common consolidated voice that it is grappling with as we speak?
Yeah, Shwendu, I think that's an excellent question. But, this is what the European countries tried to deal with in the London meeting. If you remember, they said it will be a coalition of the willing. So that means those countries which are willing to participate in this whole initiative, they will come. It will not be a requirement, like if there are countries like Hungary, which doesn't want to go ahead with the plan, or there might be some misgivings as far as Italy, Giorgia Meloni is concerned, or if there are certain misgivings as far as Slovakia is concerned. So, these 2 or 3 countries, then they can be excluded and all the other countries can go ahead. But, that having been said, I think there is a closing up as far as the ranks in European countries are concerned. There's been huge confusion, but I think these statements that are coming out, that we cannot let go of the American support, that was reiterated, you would recall, in London. That has been reiterated in Brussels. That's been reiterated by Olaf Scholz. Even by the new incoming Chancellor of Germany, Friedrich Merz. He's also said, we have to chart an independent course from the United States. But for the time being, there is no way that, they can chart an independent, plow a lonely furrow without the United States being along with them. Because they know that without the United States at this stage, they will not be able to help support Ukraine, provided the support that it needs. They will, of course, they've said, about $800 billion they are going to provide to Ukraine in the coming years. But then in terms of the military supplies, it's not only funding, it's also the military supplies. And they don't have, that sophisticated weaponry and equipment, or for that matter, satellite communication and intelligence, which has been stopped now by the United States to Ukraine, after this fracas between President Zelensky and Trump. So that has been stopped, and they had realized it even in London, that they cannot go it alone. They need the United States support, at least for the time being, for some time to come.
And so just to understand the complexities of EU geopolitics, the presence of President Volodymyr Zelensky in Brussels does bring the Russia-Ukraine conflict onto the forefront. But references to nuclear deterrence also brings into question the fractures that are being created in NATO itself, something that binds the West together. Hitato.
Yeah, you're right. You see, Shwendu, because this fracture and fissures, they have been visible. You leave the European Union aside, leave aside Hungary, leave aside, the slightly unsure position of Italy and of Slovakia. I think all the other countries are by and large on the same page. But the question mark that has come here is because of the involvement of or non-involvement of the United States. Because United States, which was a bulwark of support for European security and also providing the nuclear umbrella, Europe is no longer sure of that. So if the United States doesn't come forward in providing this nuclear deterrence, then what do? I think the only alternative that they have is that France is independent nuclear power, a sovereign nuclear power, so it can use its nuclear capacity, nuclear capability to provide, to try and substitute what the United States had provided. Now, of course, everyone does understand that nuclear weapons are weapons of deterrence. They are not to be used. And so, this is also a messaging that is going through. You'd recall that right from February 22, we have heard these nuclear threats coming out of Russia also. Whether it is Sergei Lavrov or it is at times even the defense minister, at times even Putin himself has said, that if you are facing an existential threat, then we are going to use it. But of course, everyone knows that, if it's only Ukraine that is fighting, Russia will never be facing an existential threat. But still, Russia has been making all these threats. So I think it was good that France made its position very clear that we are there to provide an umbrella, even if we might not be very certain of what the US stance might be on this particular issue. But there are other nuclear weapon states, nuclear powers in Europe which are willing to take a stand on this issue.
And Ambassador Sajjanar, as President Donald Trump really overturns the earlier certainties of being a security provider, being a security partner for Europe, almost embracing an old foe, Russia, what is President Trump seeking to achieve?
I think basically this is what he's been, his own philosophy is not that of a globalist. For the last 80 years, what the ideology was that the United States, being the most powerful technologically, economically, militarily, it should support other democracies which are weaker democracies economically as well as militarily, and their security would be beneficial to the United States. Mr. Trump has completely jettisoned this idea. He's thrown it out of the window. And he says that all these countries have been taking the United States for a ride. And even as far as Europe is concerned, or NATO countries are concerned, so we are, or even its trading partners. So he is, pushing back against its allies. We've seen what he has done to Canada, to Mexico on tariffs, and what he has done to EU. And he has said that on the 2nd of April, there are going to be tariffs that are going to be imposed on reciprocal tariffs, of course, around the world. But he's mentioned that EU will come in for special attention because EU has been taking undue advantage, and that he wants it to stop. And as far as Russia is concerned, he said the United States should not be spending money to defend other countries. They should be responsible for their own security. And in that context, he thinks that, if he brings down the cost to the United States and ends the war, it is going to be beneficial as far as the United States is concerned. And maybe also allow the United States also to focus more strongly and intensely on the Indo-Pacific, because realizing that China is the real major strategic competitor as far as the US is concerned.
And so finally, in the context of the dramatic rift that we saw on our televisions last week between Zelensky and President Trump, his conciliatory letter and an apparent patch-up with the United States, what does it mean for the Russia-Ukraine conflict and for larger Europe?
I think it has basically, as I mentioned, that Mike Waltz, the NSA, the US NSA, he is in touch with Russia, he's in touch with the NSA of National Security Advisor of Ukraine also, and it is stated that, this is what the reports seem to be coming out, that very soon Russia, Ukraine and the US will be meeting to discuss peace plans. I think there the big question mark is, what is it that the United States and particularly Mr. Trump has already conceded to Russia? Because Russian demands, if you look at what was discussed in Istanbul in 22, just after the conflict started, just after the war started, that was hugely damaging as far as Ukraine is concerned. And if there are elements from there that the United States has accepted, has conceded over the head of Ukraine, then I think it's going to be, the message that it sends out is going to be a very, against the interests of Ukraine and against the interest of Europe, because what it would mean is that if a country is powerful, if a country is mighty, it can just walk into another country, seize territory and get its demands accepted by the smaller country.
On that note, Ambassador Ashok Sajjanar, thank you very much for joining us on the NewsHour and sharing your perspective. Let's now turn to other stories making news today. India's Union Minister Mansukh Mandavia addressed seminar on health challenges and healthy lifestyle at Faridabad in the Indian state of Haryana. He inaugurated 3 advanced medical facilities, including a high-tech mammography machine for early breast cancer detection. Flying officer Tanushka Singh has become the first woman pilot to be permanently assigned to Indian Air Force's Jaguar fighter jet squadron. The milestone represents a major advancement in integrating women into combat roles within the Indian Air Force. India's Minister for Parliamentary Affairs and Minority Affairs, Kiren Rijiju, inaugurated regional review meeting and training workshop on Pradhan Mantri Jan Vikas Karyakram in Thiruvananthapuram in the Indian state of Kerala. Speaking on the occasion, the minister said the union government is committed to welfare of minority communities in the country. And still to come on DD India NewsHour. Former world number 1 Naomi Osaka crashes out of Indian Wells in the opening round. Neymar returns to Brazil for World Cup qualifiers after 16-month absence. You're watching DD India NewsHour. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. South Korea and the United States will begin their annual Freedom Shield military exercises from Monday amid rising threats from North Korea, informed Seoul's Joint Chiefs of Staff. The joint drills aim to strengthen the readiness of alliance for realistic threats such as North Korea's military strategy and tactics, according to JCS statement. The joint military exercise will conclude on March 20th. Prasar Bharati's CEO Gaurav Dwivedi and Ambassador of India to Kazakhstan Dr. TV Nagendra Prasad met with Vice Minister of Culture and Information of Kanat Izakov in Astana today. Both sides discussed bilateral cooperation, including WAVE Summit 2025. Prasar Bharati CEO handed over invitation from Information and Broadcasting Minister Ashwini Vaishnav to Minister of Culture and Information of Kazakhstan Aida Balyeva, and from Information and Broadcasting Secretary to Vice Minister Kanat Ishakov. The Kazakh minister said they would try to participate in the WAVE Summit and encourage Kazakh agencies to participate in the summit as well. You're watching DD India NewsHour. Time now for all the action from the world of sports. India Open 2025 witnessed its official announcement in New Delhi on Thursday. On the occasion, Indian Golf Union's Vice President Brijendra Singh said they want to make the sport more accessible for all, whereas Sanjay Ban talked about the important role of corporates in the field of sports.
The stage is all set for Indian Open 2025, and we have with us Mr. Brijendra Singh. Sir, when we talk about this particular tournament, Indian Open 2025, you've said that you want to change the perspective from making it and seeing it as an elite sport to bringing it to the grassroots level. How do you tend to make it possible for the players especially?
So you must understand, Hero Indian Open is a showcase event, and we have the best players from the world. Our sponsors, Hero, is bringing them in. That is where these kids want to see themselves. But the journey is tough and it's difficult. All we have to do is bring them, show them, and make sure we give them the facilities. And once we do that, they have a goal in front. So I think that would help a lot.
And in that case, how do you think the corporates can play an important role?
I think corporates like Hero have played a significant role so far and would continue to stay committed. I think the biggest job that corporates have is to bring that spark of inspiration by setting up a tournament as large as the Hero Indian Open, which is now no less than any other international tournament across the world. And people do look forward to come here and play the top best of international players. So when you have a tournament like that in India, the Indian players who are wanting to rub shoulders with international quality players and at that level of competition would genuinely feel very keen to play and get inspired, and that will leave a lot of other youngsters to vie for this sport.
And how do you see the government's role there?
The government is very supportive. See, understand, we need money. Without money, nothing can happen, and you need recognition. So the government is very supportive. They're helping us send these teams overseas. They are looking at us favorably by allowing us to use their facilities. Sai is there, and they've got training facilities. So I must say the government has been very, very supportive.
So there you heard that how golf is creating a new benchmark when we talk about competitive sports, especially in India. Deepika reporting for DD India from New Delhi.
In the upcoming Indian Premier League, Sunrisers Hyderabad have replaced injured England fast bowler Brydon Carse with South African all-rounder Wayan Mulder. Carse aggravated a left toe injury last month and was ruled of England's Champions Trophy campaign in Lahore. He will also miss the 2025 edition of the 2020 League. The 2016 IPL champion signed Mulder for over $86,000. The IPL will run from March 22nd to May 25th. Naomi Osaka lost 6-4, 6-4 to Camila Osorio in the first round of the Indian Wells on Wednesday. The former world number one struggled to find her rhythm after recovering from an abdominal injury that made her withdraw from the Australian Open. Though she showed glimpses of a powerful game, Osaka admitted it was the worst match of her life. Currently ranked 52, Osorio used clever drop shots and slices to unsettle Osaka, breaking her serve in both sets. It was Osorio's first ever win at Indian Wells and a historic moment as she became the first Colombian woman to beat a former world number one. Brazil have recalled Santos forward Neymar for this month's World Cup qualifier against Colombia and Argentina after more than a year. 33-year-old sustained a knee injury in Brazil's World Cup qualifier against Uruguay in October 2023 and has struggled to secure a spot in the squad. Neymar has 128 caps and a record 79 goals for this country, surpassing Pele's tally of 77. He was part of Brazil's gold medal winning squad at the 2016 Rio Olympic Games and also helped them finish runners-up to Argentina at the 2021 Copa America. Spanish striker Alvaro Negredo announced his retirement from football on Thursday. The former Sevilla, Man City and Valencia forward has been without a club since the end of last season. 39-year-old won the Premier League and League Cup with Manchester City after arriving for the 2013-14 season before leaving on loan to Valencia. The striker was part of the Spanish squad which won the Euro 2012, playing twice at the tournament. Negredo scored 290 goals in 755 club appearances and 10 goals for Spain in 21 games. In cricket, Bangladesh's veteran wicketkeeper Mushfiqur Rahim announced his retirement from ODI cricket after his team's disappointing run in the Champions Trophy. Mushfiqur took to social media to announce his retirement and revealed that he made his decision after going through a tough couple of weeks Mushfiqur has finished his ODI career with 9 centuries and 49 50s. Mushfiqur ends his rollercoaster career in the format as Bangladesh's second highest run getter behind Tamim Iqbal's record of 8,357 runs. That's all for this edition of DD India NewsHour. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. This app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan this QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India NewsHour. Namaskar.